This is load management. The idea of resting your star players so they would be fresh for the playoffs. I think a lot of people in Toronto really started understanding it when Kawhi Leonard was a thing.
So
So
it was
yeah,
actually last year that was the real start of load management. Um, I was watching. I don't know if you know who this is. Jalen Rose. He used to play in the NBA. He works for ESPN. He actually played in Toronto for a couple of years. He was saying that resting, not resting, rehabilitating an injury and load management are actually two different things. Load management is just resting your players. They don't have an injury. And last year, I think it was a little bit different with Kawhi because he was coming off a really bad injury. He had only played nine. I think he played only 9 games the year before. So I think this year is where we're actually seeing load management. And I wanted to bring this up to you because a lot of people in LA are pissed about this load management situation. And I can imagine why, because imagine paying hundreds of dollars. Because going to see a basketball game in LA is like going to see a hockey game in Toronto. It's not cheap. Imagine paying hundreds of dollars for tickets and not seeing one of the best players in the NBA.
now I could argue myself being a Habs season ticket holder that I don't mind if Carey Price isn't the starter that night, but at the same time, basketball is a much different beast.
And goalies are a very particular position, and it's a
It's
completely
different in
different
Montreal.
scenario.
It's
Pardon?
different in Montreal. Well, no, it's different in Montreal because it's Carey Price, dude.
Right.
But
No, I
anyway,
get that. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because we don't actually see a lot of load management in the NHL. And it's been taught like last year I saw it talked about uh, within Toronto media quite a bit because it was such a big topic. Do you ever see something like load management being brought into the NHL?
well, I can think of two things right off the start. Apparently, I remember Freeman talking about this that the Ducks were thinking of doing it with Ryan Getzlaff, and Getzlaff had told Freeman. Freeman had then gone to the Ducks, and then they had told Freeman, yeah, he wasn't supposed to tell you about that. Which I'm sure that's something you want to talk about in a second about the league don't want it. But I also think of Dallas, and for the past while, they have had to use two goalies in that platoon system because of how crappy their travel is. But that's been more of a necessity. People strategically using it hasn't really been a thing in the NHL, but I think it should be.
I think the thing is, first off, basketball and hockey are two completely different sports. One player can absolutely dominate for a team and carry them to the playoffs. We've seen it in the NHL where two players dominate a team and they still don't make the playoffs. So yeah, so it's a completely different situation, and I think goalies themselves are a completely different conversation.
Yeah, because in the NBA, LeBron James can score and do all this, but the problem is in the NHL, the 14-15 season without Carey Price, the Habs don't make the playoffs. But the problem in hockey is a goalie can't score a goal.
Right, right. So personally, I think it'd be interesting to see what a team could do with something like load management, but in a different way that the NBA is doing it. Because if you look at the way some NBA teams are doing it, they're resting players that are in their prime. I don't think that's what you do, right? That's not when I think of load management, that I don't think of saying, okay, Kawhi, okay, who else? Like Anthony Davis or some a big superstar who's in their prime. That's not the guy I wanna put under load management. I'm thinking someone who's older. So let's look at I'm gonna use the Leafs. I'm really sorry. I'm
It's
so
fine.
sorry. Let's say last year. Let's go to Patrick Marlowe. That's someone I want to do like have load management with, right? He's almost 40. He's he's playing all these minutes because Babcock wants to play him all these minutes, but he's playing 82 games. That doesn't seem reasonable, especially with the way the game is going.
Do you know what I think? If there was going to be load management, what rule needs to be put in place?
Tell me.
Again, and this was from 31 Thoughts, because I obviously had to drive to Montreal. I had a lot of 31 Thoughts downloaded, so I got a lot of Jeff Merrick's wacky ideas in my head. But it was the thing of your healthy scratches, you should be able to dress them in a situation like, if you're Tampa last year, don't sit there and tell me you don't want to rest Hedman down the stretch, because he got hurt and look how much it derailed their series against Columbus. Being able to dress those guys, first of all, if you're Mike Babcock, you can finally start playing guys like, avoid the Frankie Corral or Justin Hall situation again. And if there are those nights that if you're up in the third, you rest those guys, people going to your games will still see your stars play for some of the game. And I think that's the big argument for people, is they want to go see those stars.
And
so
that's the thing. You can do that in basketball.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do that in hockey. You can dress 15, not 50. Yeah, you can. I think you can dress like 15 guys in basketball and they can all play. Whereas hockey, you have all these guys and you have 3 guys sitting in the press box. So comparing load management in basketball and hockey is really tough to do. But I just wanted to put the idea out there of what you would think load management looks like in the NHL.
See, you're asking a Habs fan, right? And at the same, I would love it, because Shea Weber is playing fantastic right now. But the guy, I believe, is 34, and he's got like 7 years on his deal still. Carey Price, Marc-Andre Fleury showed it a few years ago. You can be great all season, 3 rounds of the playoffs, but then you can be burnt out by the finals, and you're screwed. So, from my point of view, yes, I would love the Habs to be able to use. I would love to see them use load management, so you have those guys ready. Let's say if you need to ride them down the stretch, but you rest them mid-season, or you're able to make it at a certain point where you can rest them down the stretch and then ride them come playoff times. I would love to see it.
Yeah, like for me, I'm thinking, okay, you guys have back-to-backs. Okay, Patrick, don't play the back half of the back-to-back. Or okay, Weber, don't play the front half or whatever, something like that.
There's no reason why, if you play Minnesota on a back-to-back, why you should be playing your best players. No offense, Minnesota, but no.
Right. It doesn't make sense.